Hello guys, welcome to StudyIQ. Today we are going to talk about the MS Swaminathan report, famously known as the National Commission on Farmers. Although there is no specific news related to this, but this is on many requests from our viewers, from students, to make a video on Swaminathan report. So let's talk about the Swaminathan report and its recommendation at length in this particular video. But before that, I am your friend Rahul Saigaonkar. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on the ID Rahul Sai 222. My Facebook, Instagram and my Telegram channel's ID is the same. StudyIQ has brought good news for you. We have a smart course which includes prelims and mains for UPSC 2021. For more information, please download the app from Google Play Store. And remember, there is EMI facility available, and don't forget to subscribe to StudyIQ. Let's first talk about the commission in general and when was it instituted and what were its terms of reference. Now, the MS Swaminathan Commission is known as National Commission of Farmers. It was dubbed as National Commission of Farmers. It was constituted in 2004, and of course, the chairman was MS Swaminathan, Professor MS Swaminathan. The terms of reference of this particular commission, they were very wide. In the sense, they just did not talk about the agriculture, but they spoke about a wholesome solution to the problem that is surrounding the farmer's life. It is, yes, agriculture, true, but apart from that, there is rural distress, the rural livelihood, etc. All these things were spoken about. For instance, the commission was supposed to give a medium-term strategy on food and nutrition security to the entire country. They also had a role to talk about how we can make agriculture remunerative in India and what kind of policy reforms would be brought. How are we going to enhance the quality and competitiveness of farm commodities, specifically with respect to the marketing. Also, the Indian farmers have been always at a risk because of the international developments. We all know that WTO, which came into picture in 1995, after that, a domestic farmer is now exposed to the risks at the international level. So, protecting farmers from the international impacts was also one of the terms of reference of this commission. Along with it, they also spoke about how are we going to empower the Panchayati Raj system in India. The work started in 2004, and for 2 years, the commission came up with a slew of recommendations. In fact, they submitted 6 reports, and which were in line with the 11th 5-year plan, whose tagline was faster and more inclusive growth. So in line with that, they did give recommendation that if we want faster and inclusive growth, that would not be possible without the growth of the farmers. So let's talk about the recommendations first. Broadly, if we talk about the recommendation, we can in general talk about what they spoke about: agrarian crisis. They said that in India, agrarian crisis is because of many reasons. See, when you talk about agriculture, it all starts with land. So they said there is a problem with land reform. The land reform which began in 1950, they were unfinished. So we need to finish that land reform. They spoke the problem of input. The input was water. Yes, there is a problem of input, that is water. The quality of seeds, the institutional credit is missing. Apart from that, Indian agriculture is still very, very traditional, and there is a technological fatigue. That is why we have low productivity. So they identified the problems first. Meaning at the input level, there are issues with land, seed, water, credit, etc. And after we harvest, we have more problems. We have a problem of lack of opportunities. Whatever the farmers are producing, where are they going to sell? They have a limitation of APMC. Added to all these problems, Indian agriculture is mostly rain-fed. It depends on the meteorological factors. And we see at the same time, in many parts of country, drought, and along with the drought, we also see floods in the many regions. It's very, very strange that these factors impact farmers' life. They make their life very, very difficult. So let's look at the recommendations one by one, and let's see what did this tell about land reform and water and so on and so forth. Let's first talk about the land reforms. Now, if you look at land in India, the commission said that in India, if you look at the figures here, you'll understand that only 14 or 14.5% of farmers can be considered as medium or large farmers. That means around 86% of farmers are small, marginal and landless also. Remember, the landless holding that amounted to 11% means 11% of farmers were landless, and approximately 75% of the farmers are small and marginal farmers holding very little land, approximately 0.1 to about 5 acres of land. So majority of farmers are small farmers. So what is needed is land reforms. They suggested whatever land reform agenda was there since 1950, which was unfinished, that needs to be finished as soon as possible. A ceiling was brought by Indira Gandhi government, and whatever was the ceiling surplus that has to be distributed among the farmers, the wasteland has also to be distributed among the farmers. The commission also recommended that the agricultural land is mainly diverted for other purposes. The forest land is also diverted for other purposes, especially non-agricultural NA lands are made. So they said you need to prevent this diversion. Apart from that, wherever there are tribals, try to ensure that they have grazing rights and seasonal access to forests. And to do all these things, the recommendation of Swaminathan Commission was that to set up a land use advisory service. Now, this land use advisory service would set up a mechanism basically to regulate sale of agricultural land, what quantum of land would be converted to NA, etc., who is the proposed buyer, what is the category of that buyer, etc. Mainly to stop the diversion of agriculture to non-agricultural land, this body would be very useful. And the implementation is still there. We do not have any such land use advisory service, right? So recommendations are galore in India. Implementation is seldom done. The problem is eternal. Let's talk about water resources. Now, with respect to water resources, the Swaminathan Commission observed that the gross sown area in our country is approximately 192 million hectare, and out of that, about 60% is rain-fed. Remember that 115 million hectares is rain-fed, meaning they depend on rainfall. They depend on God, right? So whenever there's rainfall, there is irrigation. Whenever there's no rainfall, then they are at the mercy of the climate and the weather. So Swaminathan Commission, they gave broad recommendations that we need to ensure that all the farmers get equitable and sustainable access to water. A very important recommendation was ensuring rainwater harvesting and recharge of aquifers, which should be mandatory. Again, this has not been done. Along with it, they also suggested million wells recharge programs specifically towards targeted private wells should be launched. And they said that substantial increase in investment is needed in the irrigation sector in the 11th 5-year plan. The 11th and 12th are already over. So the recommendations are old, but they still matter. Now, with respect to water, the government has done pretty decent job, because the Narendra Modi government, it has brought a very important scheme called as Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. They have spoken about per drop, more crop. So in terms of water and in terms of irrigation, the investment has increased. The water efficiency has been spoken about. Rainwater harvesting is spoken about. Focus on drip irrigation, sprinkler irrigation is already there, but a lot has to be done even in this regard for our farmers. Let's talk about the next input, that is the agricultural credit. We all know that agricultural credit, it is very important for farmers right from the beginning of agricultural activities, right? We spoke about land. What after that? The land has to be prepared. The seeds have to be bought, right? We do need input. So input credit is extremely important. And in India, right from the beginning, the credit, it used to come from the local village lenders. They used to be very exploitative. The problem was the lack of formal credit system in India. So MS Swaminathan Commission, it suggested that we need to expand the outreach of banks and other financial institutions who should give low interest rate loans. A simple 4% loan should be given to farmers. Apart from that, the Swaminathan Commission also recommended that we need to establish agricultural risk fund, especially to protect the farmers from calamities. They also recommended that Kisan credit card should be given to women farmers, and the joint pattas can be used as collateral for this. Apart from that, they also spoke about the health insurance scheme for livestock and crop insurance scheme, and they suggested that all the crops should be insured at a very low premium. And a lot of this has been done by the government. If we talk about the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, it is one of the schemes where I wouldn't say all the crops are covered, but many calamities have been covered. Crop insurance is provided at low premium. Apart from that, the recommendation was that to provide institutional development services, mainly by strengthening the producer organization, the farmer producer organizations, the SHGs, and in this regard also a lot has been done, but a lot has to be done also. Right, let's talk about low productivity. Now, what the MS Swaminathan Commission observed is that India is a very, very low productive country in terms of agriculture. Now, if you look at this particular table and look at the numbers for India, this particular list is way low when you compare to any of these figures, especially with China. For instance, if you look at the paddy from India, the productivity is just 2929 tons, and if you look at China, it is almost threefold, and if you look at any other country, it is obviously above India. So what we can say is, in general, the productivity rate in India is very, very low, which is already known, which was highlighted by the Swaminathan Commission also. Now, what was the recommendation to ensure that we produce almost equivalent to the other countries, the competitive countries? What the Swaminathan Commission said was, we need to invest heavily. The public investment has to go heavily in agriculture related infrastructure. Only then the productivity will increase. And where all that investment should go, it should go towards irrigation, it will go toward drainage, land development, water conservation, mainly research and development, and ensure there is road connectivity. Apart from that, a very important recommendation by MS Swaminathan was to create a national network of soil testing laboratories, which has not been done till now. Apart from that, a very important thing was spoken about conservation farming. Swaminathan Commission said that we need to promote conservation farming. Conservation means we need to speak about soil health, water quality and quantity, and also talk about conservation of biodiversity. So this should be integrated. Only then we can talk about productivity. So in general, increasing productivity has been a problem. If you talk about Swaminathan Commission, the recommendations came in 2004, 2006, and now almost after 16 years, there has been seldom any development with respect to rise in productivity. And I would say after 15-16 years also, the table looks very, very similar for India when you compare this with other countries. So a lot has to be done in this regard, especially to make India more productive. Right, after productivity, let's talk about farm competitiveness, and this is a very, very important pointer considering the developments in recent times, because we see that over the MSP, over the new farm bills, the new farm acts, I would say, there is a lot of protest from the farmers' side. Swaminathan Commission had recommended that we need to bring farm competitiveness and ensure marketing reforms. Swaminathan Commission suggested that we need to promote commodity-based farmers organization. Now, this has been done. Approximately, we can see that in India, there are about 5,000 FPOs, which needs to rise further. Apart from that, there has to be improvement in the implementation of the MSP. In fact, Swaminathan Commission gave a different formula for MSP, where they said the MSP should be at least 50% more than the weighted average cost of production. In fact, we'll talk about the MSP in a separate video, where we'll talk about the formula given by this MS Swaminathan Commission for calculation of the MSP. Now, apart from this, MS Swaminathan Commission also suggested that we need to promote spot and future exchange of commodities, which has been done through NCDEX, MCDEX. We do have a lot of exchanges, and one of the important commission was that the State APMC Act reforms are needed, which has not taken place till now. It was suggested that we need to move to a single Indian market, which is a very good thing through ENAM, which has already been brought. But remember, there is no recommendation here with respect to privatization of agriculture or with respect to privatization of marketing of agriculture, which the government has done right now, because of which we see a lot of protests. But nonetheless, one thing is understandable, that we do need a lot of reforms when it comes to MSP. That is a given point. Now, apart from all these broad stuff that we have discussed, one of the most important recommendation, it came from bioresources. Now, MS Swaminathan Commission, it spoke about biodiversity, and it said that we need to preserve the traditional right by giving access to biodiversity to our local communities. The Commission also recommended that we need to conserve, enhance and improve Indian crops and Indian farm animals and Indian fish stock through extensive breeding program. So a community-based breeding conservation has to be promoted. And they also said that Indian exports of indigenous breeds and import of suitable breeds has to be promoted so that productivity through livestock, it increases more and more. And one of the major recommendation, it came towards this farm suicides. Now, if we talk about farm suicide, it has been very, very prominent in many parts of India. Predominantly in central India, if we talk about the Vidarbha region, it has been a core of these farm suicides. And MS Swaminathan Commission, it looked in depth at the reasons farm suicide, and in general we spoke about that at the beginning, the problems of agriculture through agrarian crisis, where they broadly classified and they gave recommendations based on that itself. They made a separate snippet here for the farm suicide, how we can prevent farm suicides. The first recommendation was to provide affordable health insurance and to revitalize PHCs. Now, I can say affordable health insurance is being provided through many schemes of the government, like the Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana and many other schemes that are already there from the central government. Apart from that, if we talk about revitalization of primary health centers, I would say there is still a huge question mark over this. The problem is that in the last 14 to 16 years, the PHCs have been still a problem for India. The recommendation was also there to provide a social security net, especially old age support and health insurance. This is being done again through slew of measures, the Atal Pension Yojana, the Indira Gandhi old age pension scheme. Many schemes are running, but the implementation is still a problem. One of the main recommendations which came from Swaminathan Commission was to set up state level commissions, very similar to what MS Swaminathan Commission was there from the central government. It recommended that different states should set up their own commissions to give recommendations for their agricultural development, but that has not been done, right? The restructuring of microfinance was also one of the recommendations of Swaminathan Commission to ensure that there is livelihood finance, but I would say this has been a big question mark in India because MFI restructuring has not been done. In fact, there have been so many problems which have come up with the microfinance in India. Again, another recommendation was to cover all the crops for insurance. I would say to a large extent, the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana has more or less done it. In terms of covering all crops, it is still a problem, but many calamities have been covered at a very low premium. That is a very decent thing. The recommendation was to ensure availability of seeds and other inputs at affordable costs. To a large extent, subsidy program has done this, but still the quality seed problem is there in India. Apart from that, the recommendation was there to focus on market intervention scheme. Now, this has not been done in India despite almost a decade passing by this recommendation. Now, if we look at the seasonal variation of cost, now every year you must have seen that the prices of tomato, they go high or they go very low. The same thing happens with potato, the same thing happens with onions, but nothing has been done. Although there are many schemes which have been started, Operation Greens, the top scheme, etc. But despite all these schemes, the implementation has been very patchy. And that is why even today we see that there is seasonal volatility in the prices which impacts the farmers a lot. Many times you must have seen the TV news channels where the farmers are simply throwing tomatoes, potatoes on the road because of very low prices, not even sustainable prices in India. So for that, market intervention scheme specific to the cost, specific to the area, focusing on the commodity and the region should be brought, which is not done yet. Apart from that, a very important recommendation was to set up village knowledge kendras or Gyan Chaupals, where farmer distress hotspots, wherever they are, we need to set up that. To a large extent, this has been done in many of the hotspots. We do see that there are distress centers, there are public awareness campaigns which are being held, which was a recommendation to ensure that the suicidal behavior of the farmers goes down. But despite all these recommendations, despite all the schemes, despite all the programs that the central governments have brought, the state governments have brought, the farm suicides have been prevalent in India even after the recommendations, again 15 to 16 years since the recommendation, the problem of farm suicide is still very much alive. That means we are still a long way to go to ensure that there is a good livelihood provided for these farmers. The government is working tirelessly. Why I am saying this is because whenever you talk about agriculture, just open the website of Ministry of Agriculture, you will see a slew of programs and schemes. Just open your own state Ministry of Agriculture and you will see dozens of schemes. But despite all these schemes, crores of rupees being spent, where is the result ultimately? We still talk about the same farm suicides every year. Recently, when the NCRB data came, still we saw about farm suicides. The agriculture distress is still there. The farmers are protesting on the road as of now, right? We are speaking about the MSP and the farmers are protesting. So, livelihood of farmers is still at stake. It is still a big question mark in India, and a lot has to be done. And for that, very sound recommendations have been given by MS Swaminathan Commission. And perhaps let me know in your comment section, is it a time that 15 years have passed for the National Commission of Farmers? Is there a need today to bring the second National Farmers Commission and ensure that its recommendation would be implemented? I would say the Swaminathan Commission recommendations have to be implemented first, and whatever changes have happened in the past 15 years, for that probably a new set of recommendations are indeed needed. That's it from my side on this part of discussion. Thank you for watching. Jai Hind.